Thank you so much, Mike. We're thrilled to be here.
Mhm.
And here we go. Yeah,
Sure.
thank you. Glad we're here. We don't have tech support. It's just Jenny and I. And so trigger fingers sometimes gets in the way, but we'll do our best here. Jenny, I'll let you get us started.
Sure. So we're going to talk a little bit about how you're really feeling today, and we do these on at every presentation. And since we have a little bit of time, I'd love to hear in the chat how you're really doing. Not that kind of average. Oh, I'm okay. Your niceties. Feel free to be a little bit more transparent if you'd like. Maybe some of these words speak to you. So you're merely surviving, kind of existing, enduring. Maybe you're coping, like you're all right, getting through the days, all that good stuff. Maybe you are a unicorn and you are thriving. Maybe you are feeling like you've got it together. And maybe that's just today, or maybe that's a more common feeling. So really, how are people feeling today? Wish you were a unicorn. Yeah, I wish I was a unicorn too. So coping from someone. Thank you, Kara. Anybody else? Stressed, yeah. Coping. Yeah, surviving. Okay. Yeah, this kind of one. Oh, I am also hanging in there and counting down to vacation, Carolyn. I get you. Okay, in between thriving and coping. Yeah, so these one word-ish answers, this is a way that we start our coaching groups as well, just to kind of get a pulse of the room. So we really appreciate you sharing that with us. Kristi, how are you feeling today?
Yeah, I think I'm somewhere between coping and thriving. I think it's hard because I think we almost feel guilty for saying thriving, right? But I'm gonna own it. I'm not at my 100% plus, but I'm somewhere between the two.
Okay. Excellent. I am hanging in there, counting down to vacation, Carolyn and I. And I also handling things one at a time. I really like that answer as well, Tom, because I mean, honestly, that's really all we can do. So thanks for sharing how you're really feeling today. Kristi.
Right. Well, so a little bit about us, or actually the problem that we looked at when we got started. We didn't really give you an introduction of us, and I am the founder and executive director of Courage to Caregivers, a nonprofit based here in Northeast Ohio. Now, thanks to the silver lining of the pandemic, support the unpaid family caregiver to those primarily living with mental illness, but also now some chronic and serious illnesses as well throughout North America. And we're thrilled to do that work. We feel called to do that work. I come from an experience as a unpaid family caregiver myself, and now also look at myself a little bit like a professional caregiver because I'm a very proud certified family peer supporter, thanks to our friend Tamika here today, and bring that work to my work every day in support of caregivers of all kinds. And Jenny is our director of programs, a licensed independent social worker. And we also manage one of our 3 group coaching sessions, which we'll tell you about here in a minute. So when we look at what is the problem, it's literally that concept of compassion fatigue leading to burnout, and this literal epidemic of burnout. The culture that exists. And so I don't think we have to school you all on what the difference is or how this happens and how some of it builds slowly over time. And then some of it just hits us hard. And as we look at summer, where I said to Jenny yesterday, I'm going to treat you like summer Jenny right now. Right. So summer Jenny.
Hot mess.
No, not a hot mess, but we've got all the things, right? We've got the kids home on break. We work out of virtual offices. We've got some intense deadlines here, and the work doesn't stop, and yet the seasons continue to flow, right? And so what do we look like on different days, seasons of our lives, and just being in tune and recognizing the physical exhaustion, the mental exhaustion, and the emotional exhaustion that we face as professional caregivers. And honestly, most of you are likely unpaid family caregivers of one kind or another. We are pretty loose in that definition. So if you're caring for anyone else, I mean, anyone else, then you're a caregiver. We're carers. We're all carers. We are all about the mental health and well-being of caregivers. So I'll say that again. We're all about the mental health and well-being of caregivers. And while we launched with this mission to support the caregiver of those with mental illness, we're realizing that the mental health challenges as a result of caregiving for those family caregivers is intense. So we focus exclusively on that caregiver and their mental health and wellness, and getting them to understand, while we say we're in the caregiver burnout prevention business, I wish we could say we were doing that. Honestly, 99.9% of the caregivers who call us, email us, reach out for help are already there. And why is that? Because when you're managing, it's good. It's easy. I don't need help, right? But when it's hard, then you're going to reach out and ask for help. So that's the problem, is looking at the burnout epidemic and how we can work to get ahead of it. Jenny, was I going to talk there about our programs, or are you going to kind of talk about that now?
I will do them now. So because you made me think about a coaching group experience we've had recently, is where, caregiving, both professional and family caregiving, is this journey. And I do this a lot when I talk about it, which is some weird swirl. That, you think you've got it, you think you're going, oh, everything's cool, everyone's taking meds, all those things, and then boom, something happens and things change rapidly. So we really encourage our caregivers to, again, come to us before they're crispy with burnout. Crispy is my clinical word for it. And also just keep at it. It's so easy to be like, okay, got this, I'm good, I don't need support anymore. And then all of a sudden you're kind of down in that hole again, or you're spinning around in that caregiver journey, and you're looking for that support. So how do we do it? How do we help folks, get out of burnout, stay away from burnout, however you want to look at it? We have 3 programs that are kind of our signature programs. Kristi and I are always brainstorming on how to best support these populations. But in our experience, these are the 3 we're working with now. We have 3 coaching groups, AKA support groups, but we really look at it from that coaching lens. We have space for caregivers to talk about their lived experience as caregivers, but we really want to focus on tools, feelings of, what is your world outside of caregiving? If it is just going to work, caregiving, all those things, you've lost part of yourself. And again, that survival to thrival, kind of our part of our title today is, you're going to be in survival mode if all you can do is caregive. What are some parts of you that you're missing, that you're forgetting, all those things? So that's hence the coaching group name. Kristi and I do lead one of the groups, and that is our, hey, come as you are group. So all those things I just said, that we let caregivers just kind of come and go, blah, and that happens a lot, and we get it. We know there's a need for that. Our other 2 coaching groups have a curriculum of our own design, again, focused on the resilience of caregivers and tools and coping and thriving strategies for living. Often I go to those coaching groups because I honestly think they are applicable to me as a professional caregiver. And those of you that heard me talking, I am also a mother of 2 small ones. So all these tools are applicable to me as a human. So coaching groups, we also have an amazing breathing meditation group that comes before one of the coaching groups on Monday at 6. We have an excellent yoga teacher who is, I told her yesterday, we're in performance review season here at Courage to Caregivers. And I said, I hope you don't mind, but I always introduce you as an older yoga teacher. And she says, oh gosh, I don't. I said, because I want people to know that you aren't encouraging them to bend themselves into a pretzel. So maybe older is not the right term, but she's this gentle, lovable, wonderful person who also works on a with our themes, with our curriculum, to help people find gentle ways to move their bodies, to work with affirmations, and it typically ends in a deep rest. So I tell caregivers, we don't have a respite program, but I'm hoping that you can find some respite in this hour. Our third program is a peer support program. It is it is a popular program because it is that one-to-one peer support for folks. I seek to train volunteers and caregivers. It's in flux right now. I really want this program to be as true to peer support as possible, meaning without hierarchy, without, two peers supporting each other in a reciprocal relationship is what I'm striving for. So I'm connecting people with similar lived experiences. So folks that are supporting spouses, people that are supporting children, whatever their caregiver role looks like, I am hoping to match those folks with other caregivers. Sometimes diagnosis comes into play, sometimes not. It's really kind of that lived experience that we're hoping to hit. And so that often means relationship of care. And these relationships are typically via phone, an hour a week or less, and really are led by those two folks. Is it going to be event session today about how hard caregiving is? All right, let's do this. Are we going to seek resources together? Are we going to talk about, experiences with treatment? Maybe that's where they go that day. But again, it's different than therapy in a lot of ways. And I think the most crucial way is it's coming from lived experience, folks that are going to understand and get where you are in your caregiving journey. So those are our programs. And, we do it because we see that many caregivers live in this survival mode. I'm going to be so brazen to say we are experts on caregivers. We have spent a lot of research, a lot of conversations with folks that are supporting other people. And we do see that they are in this survival mode. I am sure you're very familiar with what the terms are. And I guess when we started looking at this presentation, I think Kristi she's like, is survival enough? And I don't know if you want to share that story of that wonderful young man in your home, Kristi, who got you really thinking about this term. But we are supporting caregivers to move hopefully from survival to thrival or to thriving as they struggle against burnout. Kristi.
Yeah, it definitely was the inspiration for us thinking through, is survival enough when my kids are young adults. So he was probably 30. It was early in the pandemic and I hadn't seen him for a little while. You remember those early days where you were seeing people and you were like, I'm not so sure. And you always checking in on those you love, like, how you doing? And he asked me first, and I said, you know what? I survived another day of pandemic paradise, which was very common for me to say at the time. And he just looked at me and he's like, is that enough? And I'm thinking, well, right now I'm feeling like healthy, strong, and I didn't really get it, but he had embarked on this journey of his own recovery of sorts, and really been focusing on mindfulness, which we do as an agency. And I thought to myself, wow, look at him by really focusing on mindfulness, a new meditation practice for him, schooling me, and having this really adult conversation. And if you all have young adults, you remember those really great conversations with young adult kids and their friends. It has really stuck with me. Is survival enough? And on some days it truly is, right? So this is no judgment, no shame. It's just that concept of, can we strive for thriving? And when we looked at that, we started digging in, and there's a couple concepts that we just love, but all along we had said, there's this great stat out there by a clinician researcher at UC San Francisco, that the stress of caregiving has been found to take 10 years off of a caregiver's life. 10. And so knowing that, we have equipped caregivers to better cope and manage the stress of caregiving, because I can't remove the stress of caregiving, right? But I can equip them, and so can you as professional caregivers, equip those caregivers in your care to better cope and manage the stress of caregiving, which is what we do. But are coping tools really enough versus thriving tools? And so this really gave us some great information around, what is a coping tool? And I don't need to read to you all here. And then what's the difference with a thriving tool? And those thriving tools are really the better description of what we are after in equipping unpaid family caregivers to attain. It's about going deep. It's about having that self-awareness, what's in my control and not in my control. Because I can guarantee you that's usually the first part of any conversation with a caregiver in crisis for us. It's about, taking a deep breath, and we literally teach them how to breathe. We're giving them those breathing skills, because usually when people are in crisis, they tell you to just calm down and take a deep breath. But if we're not doing it in the right way, we're actually doing more harm than good. So we're teaching them how to take those good deep breaths. And by the way, we do put all of our breathing meditations on YouTube. So if you've got a caregiver looking for some breathing meditation, they can put our playlist on their phones and use them as tools to cope, which is great. Thriving tools, for me, the big difference here is that it makes us as caregivers more self-reliant. And isn't that really what we're after? We'd love to be out of business because all of the caregivers in our care are managing, coping, thriving, and living their best life and remembering to do that. And we're going to give you a few tips on how we do that. But to me, that's what we're all about, is helping them to move up and forward into a world where that's where they're thriving.
Great. Thanks, Kristi. We did not make up the word thrival. The Urban Dictionary defines it as when someone has moved out of survival mode and into an optimal state of health, vitality, joy, and well-being. And how do you do that? Our presentation is not going to be an hour, but I'm going to just quickly focus on some small ways, kind of starting with noticing. And we say that a lot with folks. And again, if you're familiar with mindfulness, that's one of the first steps, noticing, where is this feeling in my body? Noticing, where is the breath in my body? And I would say the same thing as you're trying to move from survival to thrival. Noticing where you hold stress is another one. So stopping, pausing, all those beautiful graphics on there that can help you start to notice, when this person is in my midst, I tighten up. And, how can I find more ease in my body? Starting to notice with that. We made everything micro, and probably during the pandemic, and I'll probably keep things micro for the rest of my life, because these are big, hairy ideas. It's pretty audacious for me to say, hey, everyone, move from survival to thrival, go. It's not going to be like a switch you flip. One of the ways to do that is to start noticing some micro joys. Romanticizing your life is something I'm enjoying following on social media right now. I romanticize my life through the micro joys of cats and hot coffee and mugs with cats on it. Kristi, what are your micro joys?
I love how you combine those. For me, absolutely, I'm team dog, in case there's a question. Mine happened to get taken for a walk, and I do love to get out into my garden, especially this time of year. It brings me incredible. Now, I don't love the weeds, but I do love the beauty of my plants.
Yeah, those weeds. And another part of some small steps towards thrival is gratitude. And again, you can have a gratitude practice that's more formal. You can informally start the day with, thanks, praise, however you want to look at that. But finding some space for gratitude in your world and life, whether they're tied into micro joys or not, it's just a beautiful way to continue that journey. And meaning and purpose. And, the professionals on this call, I'm hopeful that much of your work has meaning and purpose. I know paperwork will probably never have meaning and purpose, but I hope underlying, your values connect with the work you do, and you can find meaning and purpose in that. Obviously Kristi is, has her love for this population is because of her lived experience. My love for this population is because I've seen it been neglected for so long. Caregivers that are just supposed to, rally and figure things out, and how draining and tiring that is. So I find a lot of meaning and purpose around validating their experience and really working towards, having communities, systems really recognize caregivers as individuals who have needs outside of the person they're supporting. So I, that's something that moves me towards Thrival, thinking about meaning and purpose.
I love the way you frame that. Because when you came to us, you definitely had that concept, but as you've grown to really love and appreciate their stories, right? We're so humbly invited into people's stories of pain, and you've really helped them to grow. So thank you. Quickly, there's a fun picture here of sticks. A caregiver called me once, and after I described what we do and how we do it, and empowerment and putting the onus and of the journey on the caregiver, but there to support them along the way, she said, "Oh, it sounds a lot like my neighbor." I said, "Well, how do you mean?" She said, "I looked over one day and there was a giant pile of sticks. I mean, giant, over his head. And I thought to myself, I wonder how he's going to get rid of those sticks. Is he going to burn them? Is he going to take them to the curb? How's he going to take care of this giant pile of sticks?" And a couple of days she didn't notice. And then the next thing you know, they're gone. And so she stopped her neighbor and she said, "How did you get rid of that giant pile of sticks?" And he's like, "One stick at a time." This journey of caring for someone with a complicated lifelong illness that's unpredictable, first of all, constitutes trauma, but second of all, is a lifelong journey. In addition to supporting my brother, who lived with severe mental illness for many years as his emotional and mental caregiver, I'm now a caregiver to a young adult with a severe traumatic brain injury, permanent brain damage as a result of an accident. I'm a forever caregiver. My journey will last till the day that I die. And so when you look at this journey, if I look at it as so big, like, oh, God, that's hard. But instead, I'm just going to look at one moment at a time for this journey. And I need to establish this mindset and practice around that and taking those micro steps. And how do we do that? Jenny and I were just talking about that yesterday. Remember, it's performance evaluation season here at Courage to Caregivers, and saying, we both really strive to set an example for the caregivers in our care. And my guess is you do too, for your loved ones in your homes and the ones you professionally care for. So if we set the example, they're looking to us. And if we don't have good practices, or I'm sending emails after midnight or what have you, we set the example for them and their good habits and practices, and they're watching, right? Mm-hmm. So we have to do what we say we do, or our credibility means nothing. And when you look at these micro steps, these are those very basic things that lead to a practice. And that's been our real focus this year, of establishing healthy practices. And we know that that starts with micro steps that lead to habits, and that it takes a minimum of 30 days to create a new habit. It takes even longer to undo a bad habit, but it's possible. And it takes partnership and accountability. I'm not sure how much we wanted to spend here, but
I'm just going to touch. I mean, I know if you're on this call, you are most likely a lifelong learner, and positive psychology to me is a real motivator. And this theory of well-being, I'd invite you can click that little code here as we're up there, or just Google the PERMA theory of well-being. I think this has some great steps towards how to improve your well-being, your own or someone you support, and having those pieces really speaks to me. So hit that up if you're interested in more.
Yeah, it was definitely a game changer, and all of his work is and studies have been incredible. But we strive to be a really positive environment that helps caregivers leave a group better than when they came in. That's our goal. Doesn't always happen because of where they are in their journey, but that's our goal. And we do that through a lot of positivity and empowerment. We feel like values is a really essential step and a place where you really begin. Because for me, my journey as a caregiver, I was doing what I was supposed to do. I really didn't even see my job as a caregiver in the moment. And most of our caregivers don't identify as a caregiver right away, which is probably one of the biggest barriers to coming to us. Mm-hmm. But I was just doing what I was supposed to do, being there for my brother. I was always a mom, but now suddenly I became my brother's primary mental and emotional caregiver. Whew. And I lost myself in those 4 years of providing that. I was literally infusing him with everything I had, and every conversation left me drained and worse than when I started. I lost every part of who Kristi was, my identity as a person. And so what our curriculum does, and if you start with us and go through a whole year of our curriculum, we begin with really getting down to your identity as a person, finding Kristi again. And we believe that one of those essential foundational elements is finding your values, identifying your core values. What's most important to you? And Brene Brown is a huge inspiration for us in many ways, and has this great tool on identifying your values and recognizing that your top 2 to 3 values are actually your motivational values. And when you find your motivation, that's what leads to establishing better habits that lead to a practice that's going to put us out of business one day. So this exercise, and again, you can Google it or use the QR code to find that exercise. It's a great handout. She's made available to us, and we use it, again, as we support caregivers to get back to who they are at their core.
Yeah, I can't say enough good things about that handout on values. I've used it in multiple settings, and it really, really just clarifies things for many folks. We're back to that micro word here again. We always encourage folks to set goals, and that's part of our onboarding conversation. And we realize that goals is a hairy, scary word for folks, that that's a shutdown moment. So we really also encourage like micro challenges, and it's small on the screen, but if you want to use that QR code again, you'll be able to see our May, well, I don't know if it's which month it's linked to. This is our May 2023 calendar. But again, really simple steps that go along with our theme for the month, which was growth mindset in May. And small things that you can print out on your refrigerator, you can put it on your phone, however works for you. And you can still feel that forward motion on days where thrival seems like a weird word that you're never going to get to. You can have some micro movement even in the hardest of days.
It does link to May, but we're always, if you reach out, we're always happy to share. It's also on our website as a tool for professional caregivers. And this really came about because setting goals felt so hard, like Jenny said, that this gave them that inspiration as a micro challenge. So we do love it. We have these 7 C's for coping with stress that we just love because we feel like it gives caregivers that both validation and affirmation that Jenny was saying is so much what she loves about her job. And it's really based on the 3 C's of recovery. And so much of what we do is based on a recovery model. And so it's just reminding caregivers, right? You didn't cause your loved one's mental, chronic, or serious illness. You can't cure that illness. You definitely can't control that illness, and you can't change it. And yet you can find courage, compassion for yourself and others, and you can cope. And that's ultimately what we're all about, reminding them, giving them permission to, and supporting them in their lifelong journey of striving for those things. So we do want to be a resource to you. We're going to put in a real shameless plug, Mike, since we had those few extra minutes. Thank you for letting us slow down. I do talk fast, but we appreciate the opportunity to slow down and just say that we were really fortunate to receive a grant to support professional caregivers as well for the next year. And we're doing that on offering our services on a sliding scale range, making it affordable and accessible for all, because we know that the tools we provide are meant to be shareable with the caregivers that you support. So if you're in Northeast Ohio and interested in bringing us to your agency, please reach out to Connect, because again, we want to be a support to you as a professional caregiver, and we want to be there for any of the unpaid family caregivers that you care for. All of our programs are at no cost to the participant, thanks to the generosity of our donors and funders. So what questions do you have?